The arena master Vokthorn had seen 3,000 fighters die in his pits. He wore their deaths like medals, each one a testament to his carefully calibrated murder machine. So when the human walked into his registration office on Station Gamma 9, he did what any reasonable arena master would do. He laughed, not a polite chuckle, a full gut-shaking four-lunged Crithian belly laugh that made his assistant drop her data pad. "You?" Vokthorn wheezed, his compound eyes watering with mirth. "You want to register for the trials?" The human, a female specimen who'd introduced herself as Riley Morgan, just stared at him. She was small by human standards, maybe 5.5 feet of compact muscle wrapped in a tank top and cargo pants. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she had the kind of face that suggested she'd heard every joke before and found none of them particularly funny. "That's why I'm standing in your office," Riley said flatly. "Unless you run a bakery on the side." Vokthorn's laughter died. He leaned forward across his desk, which groaned under his bulk. "Little creature, do you have any idea what the trials are?" "Gladiatorial combat. Progressive difficulty. Prize money." I read the flyer. "The flyer," Vokthorn repeated slowly, "does not mention that the average survival time is 4 minutes. It does not mention that we have never in 17 cycles had a fighter survive past round 8. It certainly does not mention that I specifically designed round 1 to eliminate the weak, the stupid, and the unfortunate." Riley pulled out a credit chip and slid it across the desk. "Does it mention that the registration fee is 500 credits? Vokthorn stared at the chip, then at the human, then back at the chip. The thing about running a murder pit was that business was business, and this stupid little ape was volunteering to be torn apart for the amusement of thousands. Or was he to deny the crowd their entertainment? He took the chip. "Your funeral," he muttered, updating his registration system. "You fight in 2 hours. Try not to die too quickly. The audience hates short matches." Riley nodded, and turned to leave. Then she paused at the door. "Quick question. What's the record for most rounds survived?" 8. A Valorian war champion made it that far before the Ravagers got him. "Huh." Riley seemed to consider this. "Thanks." Then she was gone. Vokthorn's assistant, a nervous Plixian named Gila, finally picked up her data pad. "Sir, should we contact medical? Prepare the cleaning crew?" "Round 1, Vokthorn said with absolute certainty, "will take maybe 90 seconds. Have the crew standing by." He was wrong. But he wouldn't realize just how wrong until much, much later. The holding area beneath the arena smelled like blood, fear, and industrial disinfectant. Riley sat on a bench, ignoring the other fighters who kept shooting her looks that ranged from pity to predatory interest. There were 7 others scheduled for the first wave. A Draconu bruiser with scales like armor plating, 2 Kelvin twins who moved in perfect synchronization, something that looked like a mantis had angry relations with a tank, and a few others whose species she didn't recognize. They all looked at her like she was already dead. "First time?" the Draconer rumbled, his voice like grinding stones. "Yep," Riley said, examining her fingernails. "Advice? Run for the far wall. Maybe you last 30 seconds instead of 20. "Thanks. I'll keep that in mind." The Draconer snorted smoke from his nostrils and turned away. The others went back to their pre-battle rituals: prayer, weapon checks, controlled breathing. Riley just sat there looking bored. When the gate opened and sunlight poured into the holding area, the roar of the crowd hit like a physical wave. 15,000 spectators packed into the tiered seats, representing dozens of species from across the sector. They'd come to see violence. They'd come to see death, and they were very, very loud about it. Riley walked out onto the sand, squinting against the glare. The arena was roughly circular, maybe 200 feet across, with smooth walls too high to climb and no cover except a few decorative pillars that wouldn't stop a determined sneeze. The other fighters spread out, each claiming territory. Vokthorn's voice boomed from the speakers, amplified to godlike proportions. "Welcome, bloodseekers, pain lovers, and connoisseurs of carnage. Today we begin a new trial season, and as always we start with a culling. 8 fighters enter. Maybe 1 leaves. The rest become floor decorations." The crowd went absolutely feral. "Round 1, Vokthorn continued, clearly enjoying himself, "is simple. Survive the renders. For those keeping track at home, current survival rate is, oh yes, 12%. May the void have mercy on their souls, because I certainly won't." A gate on the far side of the arena rumbled open. What emerged made several audience members gasp. Renders were modified predators, gene-spliced nightmares from a dozen different Deathworlds, all teeth and claws and murder. These particular specimens looked like wolves had been crossed with bears and given anger management issues. 6 of them, each one easily 7 feet long, rippling with muscle, dripping with anticipation. They saw the fighters and charged. The Draconer braced himself, roaring a challenge. The Kelvin twins split up, trying to flank. The mantis tank thing screeched and raised its blade arms. Everyone else scattered. Riley just stood there, watching, calculating. The first render went for the closest target, which happened to be a reptilian fighter who'd frozen in panic. The creature covered 30 feet in maybe 2 seconds. Its jaws opened wide enough to swallow a small vehicle. Then Riley was there. She'd crossed half the arena in the time it took the render to make its leap. Her hand snapped out, grabbed the creature by its lower jaw, and redirected its momentum straight into the ground with a sickening crunch. The arena went silent. 15,000 beings collectively held their breath. The render twitched once, then stopped moving. Riley straightened up, brushed sand off her hands, and looked at the remaining 5 renders with an expression of mild annoyance. "Okay," she said quietly, though somehow the arena's acoustics picked it up. "Who's next?" That's when things got interesting. In his observation booth, Vok-Katharn choked on his drinking tube. "What?" he said very slowly. "Was that?" Gila was frantically pulling up data on her screens. "Sir, I'm getting readings that don't make sense. The human just. The force calculations are this shouldn't be possible. Obviously it's possible." Vok-Katharn snarled. "I just watched it happen. What else does your database say about humans?" "Not much, sir. They're from a planet called Earth. Classified as a Class 12 Deathworld. Gravity is 1.1 standard. They're supposed to be fragile compared to most spacefaring species. Does that?" Vok-Katharn pointed at the arena where Riley was now casually dodging a render's lunge. "Look fragile to you?" Down on the sand, Riley had apparently decided she'd seen enough. 2 renders came at her from different angles, coordinating their attack with pack predator intelligence. She dropped into a crouch, let them overshoot, then sprang up and grabbed each one by the throat. There was a brief moment where the creatures thrashed and clawed, and then 2 distinct snapping sounds echoed through the arena. She dropped the bodies and turned to face the remaining 3. The crowd had found its voice again. They were screaming, but it wasn't the bloodthirsty cheers from before. It was something closer to shock. Awe. Maybe a little fear. The Draconer, who'd been holding his own against one render through sheer armored stubbornness, just stopped and stared. "What are you?" he called out. Riley shrugged. "Human. That doesn't explain anything." "Sure it does." She sidestepped another charge, grabbed the render by its tail and used it as an improvised weapon to bludgeon one of its packmates. The sound was somewhere between a melon exploding and a drum solo. "I'm from Earth. We're kind of durable." The last render, displaying more intelligence than its siblings, turned and tried to run back through its entry gate. Riley picked up a rock, casually threw it hard enough to break the sound barrier, and turned the fleeing creature into an instant biology lesson. The arena fell silent again. This time it lasted a full 10 seconds. Then Vok-Katharn's voice crackled over the speakers, significantly less confident than before. "Well, that was unexpected. Round 1. Complete. All fighters who are still breathing, report to the ready area for round 2. Riley walked off the sand, passing the Draconer, who was still standing frozen. "You coming?" she asked. He nodded mutely and followed. Behind them, the cleaning crews were already swarming onto the arena floor, and several of them looked distinctly queasy. The ready area was chaos. The other surviving fighters, all 5 of them, couldn't stop staring at Riley. The Kelvin twins were having a rapid-fire conversation in their own language, occasionally pointing at her. The mantis thing was cleaning its blade arms obsessively, probably trying to process what it had just witnessed. A medical technician approached Riley nervously. "Do you need treatment?" he asked in broken standard. She glanced down at herself. There wasn't a scratch on her. "Nope. I'm good." With the renders, yeah, they were a little grabby. "It's fine." The technician backed away slowly, like he was dealing with a ticking bomb. Vok-Katharn's image appeared on the screens throughout the ready area. His expression suggested he was having the kind of day where everything he knew was wrong. "Fighters," he began. "You have 5 minutes before round 2. Use this time wisely." Then his eyes found Riley specifically. "Especially you, human. Round 2 will not be so easy." Riley found a water dispenser, filled a cup and drank it in one go. Then she sat down on a bench and closed her eyes. To any observer, she looked like she was taking a nap. The Draconer sat down next to her carefully, like approaching a wild animal. "Is it true what they say about your planet?" he asked quietly. "Depends what they say. That it's a death world. That everything there is trying to kill everything else." Riley opened one eye. "Pretty much, yeah." "Why?" "Because," the Draconer said, gesturing at the arena beyond the walls. "This is supposed to be the most dangerous combat trial in the sector, and you look bored." She closed her eye again. "I've had worse mornings. There was this one time in Australia where I had to deal with a cassowary, a funnel web spider and a crocodile before breakfast. Now that was stressful. I don't know what any of those words mean. Count yourself lucky. A buzzer sounded. Time was up. The gates opened and once again Riley walked out onto the sand. Round 2 was supposed to be ranged combat. Automated turrets. Energy weapons. Nowhere to hide. Vaktharn had specifically designed it to punish survivors who relied on close-quarters skills. The turrets rose from hidden compartments in the arena floor. 12 of them arranged in a perfect grid. They hummed as they charged up, targeting lasers painting each fighter with red dots. Competitors, Vaktharn announced. Welcome to round 2. Turrets will fire in 3, 2, 1. Commence. The air filled with energy blasts. The other fighters scattered, running, dodging, praying. The Kelvin twins moved like water, each one covering the other's movement. The Draconer took several hits but his scales absorbed most of the damage. Riley just stood there, watching the turrets, timing their fire patterns. Then she moved. It wasn't possible to dodge energy weapons. The bolts traveled at near light speed. But Riley wasn't dodging the bolts. She was predicting where they would fire based on the turret's targeting algorithms, and moving before they pulled the trigger. She crossed the arena like a ghost, weaving between blasts that should have hit her but somehow never did. When she reached the first turret she grabbed it, ripped it out of the ground, circuit sparking, and threw it at another turret. Both exploded. The crowd was on its feet. Riley moved to the next turret, and the next. Within 2 minutes, she'd destroyed all 12 of them, and the arena floor was littered with smoking wreckage. The other fighters stood in the sudden silence, staring. Vaktharn's voice came over the speakers. He didn't sound smug anymore. He sounded worried. Round 2. Complete. All surviving fighters, return to the ready area. As Riley walked past him, the Draconer muttered something in his own language that the translators rendered as approximately "We're all going to die." Probably not, Riley said cheerfully. You guys are doing great. Very impressive survival instincts. The rounds get harder. I'd hope so, otherwise this would be really boring. The Draconer stared at her. Then he started laughing. A deep booming sound that echoed off the walls. You're insane. I'm from Earth, Riley corrected. There's a difference. By round 5, word had spread. The viewing numbers for the arena's broadcast had quadrupled. People across the sector were tuning in to watch the human who treated the deadliest combat trials like a casual workout. Round 3 had been environmental hazards. Floors that opened into pits of acid. Walls that shot spikes. Ceilings that tried to crush you. Riley had navigated it like a parkour course, occasionally grabbing other fighters and pulling them out of danger before they could die. Round 4 was supposed to be one-on-one duels. Riley had finished her opponent in 8 seconds and then stood there looking mildly disappointed while the crowd lost their collective minds. Round 5 was champion fighters, actual professionals, drawn from the arena's reserve roster, each one a veteran with dozens of kills to their name. Riley yawned during the pre-fight announcement. Vaktharn, watching from his booth, felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Uncertainty. This wasn't how the trials worked. Fighters were supposed to die. They were supposed to struggle. They were supposed to bleed. This human did none of those things. Gila, he said quietly. Pull up everything we have on humans. Medical files, military records, anything. Sir, most of their planet is under quarantine protocols. They only made contact with the greater galaxy 6 months ago. Data is limited. Then get me whatever you can. I need to understand what I'm dealing with. On the arena floor, Riley was squaring off against a Valorian champion named Krell, the same species that held the previous record for rounds survived. Krell was 8 feet of scaled muscle, armed with plasma blades, trained since birth for combat. He looked at Riley with something approaching respect. You fight well, human, he said formally. It will be an honor to face you. Thanks, Riley said. You seem nice. Try not to die, okay? Krell's expression flickered. What? Round 5 doesn't say anyone has to die, just that we have to fight. So let's fight, and then we both move on. Sound good? For a moment, Krell looked confused. Then understanding dawned, followed by something that might have been relief. You're offering mercy. I'm offering practicality. You're clearly skilled. Killing you would be wasteful. The buzzer sounded. The match began. What followed was something that would be studied in combat schools for years to come. Krell attacked with every technique in his considerable arsenal. Riley countered, blocked, redirected, never quite hitting hard enough to seriously injure him, but making it absolutely clear she could if she wanted to. After 3 minutes of this dance, Krell lowered his weapons. I yield, he said loudly, for the crowd to hear. The human has bested me. The audience exploded. This wasn't just combat anymore. This was something else entirely. A fighter who could kill but chose not to. A predator with restraint. It was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. As they walked off the arena floor together, Krell looked at Riley with genuine curiosity. "Why spare me?" "Because back home," Riley said, "we have a saying. The strongest person in the room doesn't need to prove it." "Your world sounds fascinating." "It has its moments," Riley paused. "Also, between you and me, I'm starting to get the feeling that someone way higher up the food chain is going to get involved eventually. When that happens, I might need allies who know how this place works." Krell absorbed this. Then he nodded slowly. "You think clearly for someone in Mortal Kombat." "That's the secret," Riley said with a grin. "For me, this isn't Mortal Kombat. This is Tuesday." In his observation booth, Vokthern finally had the data he'd requested. He read it once. Then again. Then a third time, his compound eyes widening with each pass. "This can't be right," he whispered. Gila peered at the screen. "What does it say, sir?" "It says that human standard gravity is 1.1 times our standard. That their atmosphere has 21% oxygen. That their average temperature range is, by the void. Gila, their planet is classified as Deathworld. Not because of some exotic condition, but because literally everything there evolved to be as lethal as possible just to survive each other." "I don't understand, sir." Vokthern pointed at the arena, where Riley was chatting casually with Krell like they were old friends. "That human. She's not trained. She's not enhanced. She's not special. She's just average. For her species." The implications hung in the air like a storm cloud. "How many humans are there?" Gila asked, quietly. Vokthern checked the data. His drinking tube fell from nerveless fingers. 8 billion. They stared at each other. Then simultaneously they looked back at Riley, who was currently asking Krell if he wanted to grab food before the next round. "Sir," Gila said carefully, "maybe we should reconsider the difficulty scaling for the remaining rounds." "Oh, absolutely not," Vokthern said, a manic gleam entering his eyes. "You know what this means, Gila? This means we're about to witness history. Either that human is going to conquer my arena, or the arena is going to show her that there are still things in this universe that can challenge her. And if she wins, all the way to the end," Vokthern grinned, showing all his teeth, "then we'll have the single greatest champion this arena has ever seen. And the ratings will be astronomical." Below them, Riley stretched and looked up at the booth, as if she could feel them watching. Then she waved, a casual little gesture that somehow felt like a promise. Round 6 was about to begin and the entire sector was watching. By round 10, the arena had become less of a gladiatorial pit and more of a universal phenomenon. Broadcasts were being picked up across 17 systems. Betting pools had crashed 3 separate financial networks, and Vokthern had received no fewer than 47 death threats from gamblers who'd bet against the human making it past round 3. Riley Morgan, meanwhile, was sitting in the ready area eating something called a nutrition bar, and looking about as stressed as someone waiting for a shuttle that was running 5 minutes late. The other fighters, the ones who'd somehow survived this far, had stopped trying to understand her. The Dracona, whose name turned out to be Torvald, had appointed himself her unofficial bodyguard despite the obvious absurdity of protecting someone who'd punched through a battle mech in round 7. The Kelvin twins, Mira and Kira, had started mimicking her fighting style with terrifying effectiveness. Even Krell had stuck around, volunteering for later rounds just to keep watching. "This is unprecedented," Gila muttered, updating her logs for the 15th time that day. "Fighters don't usually form alliances in the trials. Fighters don't usually face something that makes them reconsider their entire understanding of the food chain," Vokthern replied. He'd given up trying to maintain his sinister arena master persona somewhere around. Now he was just documenting everything with the fervor of a scientist who'd stumbled onto a new species. "Have you noticed she hasn't even broken a sweat?" "Sir, humans don't have the same respiratory cooling system as most species. They use liquid secretion through their skin pores." "I know what sweating is, Gila. My point is she hasn't done it. Not once. We're 10 rounds in and she looks like she just woke up from a nap." Down in the ready area, Riley was indeed looking extremely well rested. She'd discovered that the facility had something approximating coffee, though it tasted like burnt rubber mixed with regret. Still, it had caffeine, and that was close enough. Torvald approached her cautiously. After 10 rounds of watching her work, he'd developed a healthy respect that bordered on religious awe. "Human Riley," he rumbled. "May I ask you something?" "Sure, shoot." "What does that mean, shoot?" "It means go ahead and ask." "Ah, thank you." Torvald settled his bulk onto a reinforced bench. "On your world, how does one become a warrior? Is there training, rituals, genetic enhancement?" Riley considered this while chewing her terrible nutrition bar. "Mostly we just kind of grow up there and try not to die. The planet does most of the work for us. But you must have military training, combat schools." "Oh, sure. But I never went to any of that. I was a park ranger." Dead silence fell over the ready area. Every surviving fighter turned to stare at her. "A what?" Krell asked slowly. "Park ranger. You know, I made sure people didn't litter in national forests, helped lost hikers, occasionally dealt with aggressive wildlife. Pretty standard stuff." Torvald's translator implant made a concerning noise like it was trying to process information that contradicted its basic programming. "You're telling me," he said very carefully, "that you were responsible for maintaining recreational areas?" "Yep." "And dealing with lost civilians?" "Uh-huh." "Not military?" "Nope. Though my dad was army, so I picked up a few things. Mostly how to pack efficiently and why you should always carry extra water." Mira, or possibly Kira, one of the Kelvin twins, spoke up. "The creatures you fought as a park ranger. They must have been formidable predators." "Sometimes, yeah. Grizzly bears could be a problem. Mountain lions. Once had to relocate a pack of wolves that got too comfortable around a campground." "And these creatures," Krell said, "they would be considered dangerous on your world?" "I mean, yeah. They could definitely kill you if you weren't careful. Though honestly, the most dangerous thing I dealt with was tourists who wanted selfies with the buffalo. You have not experienced true fear until you've watched a guy in flip-flops try to pet a 2,000-pound animal with horns." The translators struggled with several of those words. The fighters struggled with the implication. "Let me understand this," Torvald said, his voice taking on a slightly hysterical edge. "Your job was to protect weak, untrained civilians from creatures that could kill them. That's one way to put it, sure. And you, who are absolutely average for your species according to the database, maybe slightly above average. I did place third in my region's cross-country running competition. You protected civilians from predators." Each word came out like Torvald was testing whether reality would collapse. "On a Deathworld. As a routine job. That presumably many others also do." "Well, yeah, someone's gotta do it. National parks are important for conservation and public recreation." Torvald stood up, walked to the nearest wall and very gently banged his head against it several times. The buzzer sounded for round 11. Riley crumpled up her nutrition bar wrapper, tossed it in a recycling bin with perfect accuracy from 30 feet away, and headed for the arena entrance. "You guys coming? This round is supposed to be environmental adaptation. Should be interesting." The fighters exchanged looks. Then, as one, they followed her. What else could they do? Round 11 turned out to be exactly what Vogtharn had promised. The arena floor had been converted into 6 different extreme environments, each one designed to be lethal in its own special way. Acid swamps, superheated volcanic zones, sub-zero tundra, zero-gravity sections, areas with toxic atmosphere, and a personal favorite, a zone where the gravity randomly fluctuated between 0 and 5 times standard. Fighters must cross all 6 zones to reach the victory platform, Vogtharn announced, his confidence returning slightly. Surely this would challenge the human. Each zone will test your species' adaptive capabilities to their limits. May fortune favor the flexible. The gate opened. The fighters spread out, each heading for the zone that seemed least immediately fatal to their specific biology. Riley walked straight into the volcanic zone. The temperature was somewhere north of 200 degrees. The air shimmered with heat. The ground was cracked, molten rock visible through the fissures. This was an environment designed to cook most species alive in under 30 seconds. Riley paused, wiped her brow and muttered, "Ah, like Arizona in August." Then she just walked through it. Not quickly, not struggling. Just walking. Like she was taking a stroll through a particularly warm park. In his booth, Vogtharn made a sound like a deflating balloon. "Sir," Gila said, frantically checking her instruments. "The heat sensors are showing 215 degrees in that zone." "I can see that, Gila. Humans are not supposed to survive that. Their internal temperature regulation should be failing. Their proteins should be denaturing. Their everything should be dying." And yet, they watched Riley emerge from the volcanic zone, check it off on an imaginary list, and head straight for the acid swamp. She studied it for maybe 5 seconds, found a path across using raised stones in one truly impressive leap, and made it through without getting a single drop of acid on her. The zero-gravity zone she navigated by grabbing onto walls and pulling herself along with casual efficiency. The toxic atmosphere zone she just held her breath through, moving fast enough that she cleared it before her oxygen ran out. The sub-zero tundra made her shiver slightly, the first sign of discomfort anyone had seen from her, but she still crossed it faster than the cold-adapted species who'd chosen that zone. The variable gravity zone was where things got interesting. Just as Riley entered it, the gravity spiked to 5 times standard. Most species would have been crushed flat. Riley's knees bent slightly, adjusting to the change, and she kept walking. When the gravity disappeared entirely, she used the momentum to bounce off a wall and shoot toward the victory platform like a missile. She landed, stuck it like an Olympic gymnast, and turned to watch the other fighters still struggling through their chosen zones. The crowd had gone from cheering to something closer to religious chanting. Riley's name, or at least an approximation of it in various alien languages, echoed through the arena. Vokthorn slumped in his chair. Gila. Yes, sir. How many rounds did I design for this season? 20, sir. And we're at 11. Yes, sir. She's going to beat all of them, isn't she? Gila looked at her screens at the data that kept coming back with results that shouldn't be possible. At the human who was now helping Torval across the final section of the acid swamp. Yes, sir. I believe she is. Then I suppose, Vokthorn said with a sigh that turned into a laugh that turned into something slightly unhinged. We should make the last 9 rounds memorable. Round 12 was supposed to be a maze filled with traps. Riley solved it in under 3 minutes by climbing the walls and running along the top where there weren't any traps. Round 13 was combat against armored assault drones. She dismantled them with the efficiency of someone who'd watched too many engineering videos online. Round 14 was a test of endurance, holding a weighted platform above your head for as long as possible. Riley held it for 47 minutes while having a conversation with Torval about Earth's orbital mechanics. By round 15 the arena had run out of standard challenge types. Vokthorn had to start improvising. Round 15 he announced, trying to inject some drama back into the proceedings. We'll test not your body but your mind. Before you is a puzzle that has stumped scholars for generations. The lock of infinite combinations. Solve it, or remain trapped in the arena until you forfeit. The lock was an ancient artifact, recovered from a dead civilization, with a mechanical complexity that bordered on artificial intelligence. It had thousands of moving parts, each one affecting the others in cascading patterns. The solution was supposed to be essentially impossible without years of study. Riley looked at it for maybe 90 seconds, tilting her head like she was listening to music only she could hear. Then her hand started moving, twisting and turning components in a sequence that looked random but clearly wasn't. 5 minutes later the lock clicked open. The attending scholars who'd been brought in to observe lost their collective minds. One of them actually fainted. Another started speaking in tongues, or at least what the translators couldn't parse as any known language. How? Krell asked, staring at the lock. That should have been impossible, Riley shrugged. It's just pattern recognition. The key was realizing that every 7th movement resets the 3rd quadrant, so you have to work in sets of 6. Pretty straightforward once you see it. Pretty straightforward, Krell repeated numbly. Round 16 was a battle royale against creatures imported from various Deathworlds across the sector. Riley befriended 3 of them within the first 2 minutes, and convinced them to fight alongside her against the others. Round 17 was supposed to be a test of will, resisting psychological attacks from psionic entities. Riley apparently had such strong mental shields naturally, probably from growing up in a world where every day was a survival challenge, that the psionics gave up and asked if they could study her brain patterns instead. And then came round 18. Vokthorn had saved his absolute worst for this round, not because he thought it would kill the human at this point. Nothing could kill the human, but because he wanted to see how she'd handle it. Round 18 was simple. Simple. One opponent, the reigning champion of the arena, held in reserve for only the most exceptional circumstances. A creature that Vokthorn had found on the edge of known space, kept sedated and contained because it was too dangerous to release except under controlled conditions. The Devourer of Stars. A being that existed partially in regular space, and partially in something else entirely. 15 feet tall, made of shadows and teeth and hunger given form. It had never been defeated. It had never been contained. It had only been bargained with. And the bargain was simple. Give it worthy prey, and it would fight in the arena. Fail to provide worthy prey, and it would consume everyone in the facility. The gate opened. The Devourer emerged. The temperature in the arena dropped 20 degrees instantly. Light seemed to bend around it as if reality itself was uncomfortable with its presence. It saw Riley. Riley saw it. For the first time since arriving at the arena, her expression shifted from mild boredom to something approaching interest. Now that, she said quietly, is more like it. The Devourer moved, not ran, not walked. It simply existed in one location and then existed in another, covering the distance between them in a blink. Its claws, if they could be called that, were sharp enough to cut through space itself. Riley ducked, rolled, came up with her fists raised. The Devourer's attack passed through where she'd been standing and left a tear in reality that sealed itself with a sound like breaking glass. The crowd had gone absolutely silent. This wasn't entertainment anymore. This was something primal. This was 2 apex predators recognizing each other as equals. The Devourer struck again, faster this time. Riley blocked with her forearm. The impact created a shockwave that cracked the arena floor. She slid back several feet, leaving trenches in the sand. but she was smiling now. "Okay," she said, cracking her knuckles. "Let's dance." What followed was the kind of fight that legends are made of. The Devourer used every trick in its considerable arsenal. Reality distortion, phase-shifting attacks that came from angles that shouldn't exist in three-dimensional space. Riley countered each one with a combination of raw speed, pattern recognition, and what could only be described as weaponized stubbornness. She couldn't hurt it. Not really. It existed partially outside normal space, which made conventional damage difficult. But she could avoid it, redirect it, frustrate it, and more importantly, she could learn its patterns. 8 minutes into the fight, Riley figured out the rhythm. The Devourer's attacks followed a specific sequence, dictated by its partially phased nature. It had to exist fully in regular space for a fraction of a second each time it struck. She waited for that fraction of a second, then she hit it. The sound was like a thunderclap and a train crash had a child. The Devourer flew backward, crashed into the arena wall hard enough to crack it, and lay there for a moment, seemingly stunned. Riley stood in the center of the arena, breathing hard for the first time since the trials began. "You good?" she called out. "That was a solid fight. Respect." The Devourer slowly pulled itself up. Then it did something that made every xenobiologist in the audience start frantically taking notes. It bowed. A gesture of acknowledgement from one warrior to another. Then it turned and walked back through its gate, which sealed behind it. The arena erupted. The noise was deafening. Beings were screaming, cheering, crying. Several religious groups immediately declared Riley a prophet. The betting pools that hadn't crashed earlier crashed now. In his booth, Vokthorn sat in stunned silence. Finally, he leaned forward and activated his microphone. "Round 18. Complete. Winner, Riley Morgan of Earth." He paused, then added, "2 rounds remain. May whatever gods you believe in have mercy on us all." Riley walked off the arena floor. She was actually tired now, slightly winded, and there was a small cut on her cheek where one of the Devourer's reality-bending attacks had gotten a little too close. She touched it, looked at the blood on her fingers, and laughed. "Now that was fun," she said to no one in particular. Torval, Krell, and the Kelvin twins met her at the entrance. They looked at her with expressions that transcended respect and landed somewhere in the territory of awe. "Human Riley," Torval said formally, "you have earned something from me that I have never given to another fighter. My absolute, complete, and total terror." "Ah, thanks, buddy. No, I mean it. You terrify me. Your species terrifies me. I am genuinely concerned about what happens when your people inevitably decide they want to expand into the greater galaxy." Riley patted his scaled shoulder. "We're mostly harmless. We just want to make friends, learn stuff, and occasionally punch things that need punching. You punched a being made of shadows and hunger. It punched first." Krell stepped forward. "The Devourer has fought in this arena 12 times. It has never been bested. Warriors from across the sector have tried and failed. And you, I mean, it was tough," Riley admitted. "Definitely the hardest fight today. But you know what my dad used to say? If something can be hit, it can be beaten. Just took me a few minutes to figure out where to hit." "Your father sounds terrifying. He was a drill sergeant." "Same basic concept." The medical technician from before approached nervously. "Human Riley, you are bleeding. May I examine the wound?" She let him look at the cut on her cheek. He pulled out a scanner, ran it over her, and his expression cycled through confusion, shock, and something close to despair. "What's wrong?" Riley asked. Your cellular regeneration is. You're healing while I'm scanning you. The wound is already closing. This rate of recovery is. How are you alive? How does your biology not collapse from the sheer energy requirements of maintaining itself?" "We eat a lot," Riley offered. "Oh, and sleep is important. 8 hours a night if you can manage it." The technician backed away, muttering calculations under his breath. Gila's voice came over the facility's PA system. "All fighters, you have 1 hour before round 19. Please use this time to rest and prepare." Riley found a quiet corner, sat down, and closed her eyes. Within 30 seconds she was asleep. Just curled up on a bench like it was the most comfortable bed in the universe, completely relaxed despite being in a murder arena. The other fighters watched her sleep. Torval pulled out a datapad and started recording notes. "For my memoirs," he explained to Krell. "If I survive this, I'm writing a book. Nobody will believe it, but I'm writing it anyway." "What will you call it?" Krell asked. "I was friends with the human who broke the arena. A survivor's tale. Catchy." In his observation booth, Vokthorn was having what could only be described as an existential crisis. He'd built his entire career on creating inescapable death traps. He'd designed challenges that legendary warriors couldn't survive. He'd made an art form out of controlled carnage. And this human, This park ranger from a planet nobody had heard of 6 months ago was treating his life's work like a mild inconvenience. "Sir," Gila said gently, "what do we do for the final 2 rounds?" Bakan looked at her. Then, at his screens. Then at the sleeping human who'd just fist-fought a partial reality entity and won. Then he started laughing. Not the cruel laugh of an arena master, but the genuine laugh of someone who'd just realized the universe was far stranger and more wonderful than they'd ever imagined. "We give her a show," he said finally. "If Riley Morgan wants to complete all 20 rounds, if she wants to become the first being in history to do so, then by every god in every pantheon, we're going to make sure rounds 19 and 20 are worth remembering." "What did you have in mind, sir?" Buckthorn's grin was manic but not malicious. It was the grin of an artist who'd just been challenged to create their masterpiece. "Round 19. We let her face every champion who's ever survived past round 5. All at once. And round 20. He paused dramatically. "Round 20 we ask her what she wants to fight." Gila blinked. "Sir, that's not how the arena works. The arena has never had a human before. We're improvising." Buckthorn pulled up his communication systems and started sending messages. "Get me every living champion within 3 systems. Tell them there's a fighter here they need to see. Tell them that evolution is real, and we've found proof." Down in the ready area, Riley continued sleeping peacefully, a slight smile on her face, dreaming of home, of mountains and forests, and the quiet satisfaction of a job well done, unaware that in 1 hour she'd face an army. And after that, whatever challenge her imagination could conjure, the arena held its breath. The galaxy watched, and somewhere on Earth, 8 billion humans went about their day, completely unaware that one of their own had just rewritten the rules of what was possible in this strange vast universe. 2 rounds remained. The ending was anyone's guess. But one thing was certain. Whatever happened next, it was going to be absolutely legendary.